from another planet? Is Janet 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 from another planet?
The opinions you're about to hear on this show are strictly those of the panel.
The following program is rated TV MA LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for waiting through all that. It's still shorter than many, many other channels. I can tell you that right now. But I just want to say thank you to my guest this evening. Darin Wagner decided to grace me with his presence and come on and tell us all about his brand new endeavor of a brand new comic book that he's trying to get out for all of us to enjoy. Hello, Darin. How are you?
When Doc Blaylock told me I should go on a channel called Janet from Another Planet, I never took that literally. I never took Janet from Another Planet literally. So I'm a little speechless, but I'll try to muddle through here. Thank you for having me on your channel, Janet. Yes, I started a comic book fundraiser called DEMI-FOOT, Urban Sasquatch on Fund My Comic about 2 weeks ago, and we're just trying to get it funded so we can get it to be a thing. And this is the latest comic book project that I've done, and it is my first real crowdfunding effort. So. That's why that's why you've got me on here, and hopefully I can be a great guest, and also maybe help your audience understand some things about that title and other things in life. But before we go any further, I do want to mention that as a relatively good writer, I want to point out that I can help your race conquer Earth a little bit more easily. By helping convince the masses to trust you, and all these and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that, but honestly, I love Earth, and I wouldn't ever want to conquer it. I like it. I like it's very versatile, and to have people be able to have so many different decisions and choices to make in their lives. I think it's wonderful. I've seen so many planets where everyone's forced to have to do what they're told by one leader or a few leaders, and it's not a very happy existence. That's one reason why we don't allow men on our planet. So we come here to find men, and then we send back the young men once they're of age, and we just have women, and we've been happy as can be, but we still like men too.
I would expect nothing less from a planet called Venus.
Yes, it's wonderful. But I wanted to start off by letting you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, where you come from, where you grew up, a few things like that. And then we'll get into what burst into your mind to make you decide to write this DEMI-FOOT comic book.
Thank you. Yep, my name is Darin Wagner. Grew up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I'm a graduate of University of Wisconsin, and I'm also a U.S. Naval submarine veteran, writer of a couple of books, one of which was Captain Steel and Other Stories, which is still available on Amazon. The other one was Hyperactives, which is actually a collected edition of a comic book I did back in 2005, 2006, which was a superhero comic that dealt with the repercussions of having fame if you're a superhero. We were working, Clint Alinsky and I were delving into that subject a year before The Boys comic came out. And of course, The Boys, everybody knows The Boys now.
Which one are you talking about, so I can bring it up again?
Hyperactives was the one that we were, yeah. And so, yep, it's available on Amazon Kindle, and also if enough people want the trade paperback, if you order it, eventually the publisher will go ahead and print it out. I don't control that anymore. That is a
I'm sharing the link in the chat. I have right now. I'm airing on Rumble, YouTube, and Kick right now, and so hopefully, maybe we'll get a couple people to go check it out, and it'd help you out a little bit, I hope. I mean, I'm sure my channel is way smaller than yours. I haven't been doing as long, but I really enjoy it. And this type of stuff is what I'm very interested in. I love anything to do with comic books, cosplay, supernatural, UFOs, as you can tell. So that's one reason why I've already had Doc Blaylock, Omer Glitch, quite a few others on my channel talking about their different comic books or drawings, and also have had some gamers, people writing their own, Pathfinder type games, role-playing games. So I just love all this. I think it's so interesting because it takes so much of a person's personal qualities all mixed together to be able to put on pen and paper a story and have something in your imagination to explain to an artist, this is what I see, and then have them help you put it together. People don't realize how much work goes into this, you know what I mean? And that's why I think it's awesome that you're wanting to share this on my channel with me and with my viewers, and also your viewers, because I know that you're airing this now. But I shared that in the chat. And do you want me to bring up the other one
Captain Steel
real quick? Captain Steel.
Yeah.
So let me bring that one up too.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I'm a little slow, but I'm getting better each time I do this. So here you go. This looks really awesome. Also,
Captain Steel is a as the name implies, it is a novella with some short stories as well. Added to it. It's speculative fiction, which is the term that Harlan Ellison used for lowercase fantasy. Once, if you had spoken to somebody before Tolkien what fantasy was, they wouldn't tell you sword and sandal, sword and magic stuff. They would have said anything that's not science fiction, but is also not science based. And once Tolkien came over, that whole subgenre that he created sort of took over the term fantasy, and so a new term was needed for the Twilight Zone type of stuff that you talk about or you see. And so Harlan Ellison used speculative fiction, and that's why I decided to call it. Yeah, Captain Steel. The main story is as the name would imply, about a superhero, but it's a horror comic, and then there's a couple other short stories in there that deal with, one of them takes place on a submarine, which one would expect from me, I suppose, and then there's some other things as well in there, dealing with all kinds of other fantasy topics like time travel and other dimensions and things. So it is a short, relatively short read. It's a $12 paperback. I've had a friend of mine call it the best bathroom reader he's ever had, and I think he was just kind of shining me on. But I'm like, I'll probably use that. But the cover is by John Dillard, who's the artist on DEMI-FOOT as well. This was one of the first things I had him do for me, and he up until that, this cover was added to the package. We just had a placeholder standard Amazon blase. Here's the title, here's the author cover, and so he really captured, I think, the foreboding of both the main character, the title character, I should say, and a couple of the other characters there that appear in the main story. So,
well, where did all of these characters come from? I mean, were you a child when you started popping, a teenager, when these certain things would pop in your head and you'd think, I'm going to write this down, or take notes? You have like tons of little notebooks with different stories already in them from when you were young, and you decided to put them into a book when you became an adult?
Yeah, I think every writer I've met has what they call a future book, which is just, you jot down a 3-sentence paragraph of a potential plot idea that you want to explore later on when you have time. And I was serving on USS Trepang in the late 90s, and when you're on a submarine, that's kind of like, it's kind of like being in a sensory deprivation tank. When the brain is starved of its normal diet of input, your imagination kind of tries to fill the gap, and that can be very good for a writer to actually be in. So I got special permission to bring a very simple laptop computer on board the computer, which was a highly irregular thing back in the 90s to have on a submarine, but they allowed me to have it. I had to have it scanned, every time I brought it on board and took it, took it off board to make sure I wasn't putting any info that I couldn't share, secret stuff on there. But yeah, it was all just real simple. All I had on there was a basic word processor, and Captain Steel was mostly written during the last year I was on board Trepang, and so that's
were other sailors wanting to read it as you were writing it? I mean, were they asking you lots of questions and stuff? Because I'm sure you don't have TV, you don't have a lot of things on there that a lot of the other guys were like, wow, this is really cool. I mean, it's very interesting. Yeah. Or did they offer input like, hey, I got an idea for your book, that type of stuff?
No, they respected our privacy, and a lot of them are just not, a lot of them aren't readers. Also, some of your higher ups would be like, well, even though, this is your last year on board, you really should be, trying to qualify this other watch over here and things like that. So, I mean, once I got qualified and I knew I was on my way out, when my EOS end of obligated service date was finalized, then I'm just, counting my days. But I didn't share a lot of ideas with the crew when it came to what I was actually writing, but we did broach a lot of other topics. As a sonarman, on an old Sturgeon class submarine, we had our own little room. If you go to a Los Angeles class or later submarine, sonar is basically part of the control room. So you're in a room that has the helm and the planes and the officer of the deck and all that kind of stuff. And but we on a Sturgeon had our own little room that had where we could actually kind of shoot the shit a little bit if there wasn't something going on. Especially if the submarine is moving at a flank bell, you can't hear anything anyway. The sonar system is practically it's not useless, but it's there's nothing to listen to because all you can hear is the flow noise of water moving across the hull. And so part of that trip we would have discussions about movies we'd seen and things like that, and certain ideas, and we'd like maybe have little exercises, and sometimes the guys in sonar would participate and sometimes they wouldn't, but that's what submarine life can be like sometimes when there's a lot of waiting around and a lot of just going through the paces and things like that.
Well, yeah, I know, and it's also very confined. Compared to being on a regular ship, because I have had some friends that were in the Navy, and some Navy nukes, and they would talk about because your air is scrubbed and cleaned directly from the ocean water, and things like that. So it's and then when usually everyone gets off the ship, they're sick because they get exposed to all these stuff because you guys are breathing purified air and everything. Everything's clean and scrubbed clean for your body. So, and basically, and you're white as a sheet because you haven't been exposed to the sunlight, and that you guys get addicted to television commercials and things like that because it's a very traumatic thing to be down there, depending on how long you're on a submarine. You know what happens to your body physically, but to have something like that to focus on, you were very lucky to have to be able to do that. I feel.
Yeah, I was very, very, very privileged to be able to have that. And part of the reason also was because my submarine was old. It was being decommissioned when we pulled back in the last time we went out to sea, and so since a lot of it hadn't been like the boat wasn't fully declassified or anything, but it's just it wasn't the most cutting edge vehicle in the Navy anymore. It was a workhorse in the 60s and 70s, but by the 90s it could still do some things really, really well. One or two things really well that the newer boats couldn't do as well, but it was time for her to go, and they didn't. Security was a tiny bit more lax, I think, than on the newer ones. So, LDG Free the Net is in the audience. I see he.
I was like, oh, it's time for Matt to share some of the chat before I get crazy. But I also shared your link to the what you were just talking about with your other book that you were writing on the submarine, which is a really cool background. I think and I just want to say thank you very much for your service, because I'm a military brat myself, and I think that it's important that we honor our veterans. Anyone who's willing to put their life on the line for the rest of us deserves our respect. I really do believe that. And I like to goof around like everyone, but it's important that we take care of our veterans. And anytime I do have a veteran, I definitely want them to know that I really look up to you guys, because without you, I don't know where our country would be right now. So I want to say thank you. Yeah. But
if I seem bashful, it's because men of my generation didn't get told thank you for your service. Because we served in the 20th century, and that became something that became more common after 9/11. So, but thank you. It's I always get a little bashful when somebody says that. So,
well, I just want you to know that I just don't know what we would do without men like you and my dad, basically, that were willing to give up. My dad would be gone for almost a whole year. He had 5 daughters, and he was a jungle survival instructor. So you just imagine what his life must have been like, having 5 daughters. But without you guys, I just don't know where we would be. And there's a lot of women in the military too. I feel the same way for them. Anyone that's willing to sign that dotted line should be held, to a higher regard, I feel. But I'm going to bring up your YouTube channel really quickly. And I want to share it with everyone. So I'm going to share the link also in the chat. But the thing is, how long have you been posting on YouTube? Did you start YouTube after you wrote your first, book? What was it?
I did. I did. I started the channel basically as just another way to advertise the book on Amazon, Captain Steel. And so I started a series called Star Trek from a Submariner's Perspective. And the whole point of that series was to point out things in Star Trek and where they came from a nautical perspective. And I'd use my own expertise and knowledge from the service to help explain certain things, like why do they call it a bulkhead on the Enterprise? Why do they call it this, or what is a dispensary? And so that's sort of how it started. And by the way, LDG is in the chat. He pretty much made all my thumbnails. So it's a couple of them I made myself, but most of the good ones are his. So I just want to give him a shout out there, because I know if I don't, he'll get after me. But
Yeah, I was looking at your
mhm.
YouTube earlier
Mhm.
yesterday. I was checking it out. And I was like, wow, he's really into Star Trek like I am. I mean, I don't post a lot of Star Trek videos.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
done a few reviews and things like that, but I love going to cons, Wizard
Mhm.
cons, horror con, Trekkie cons, just anything
Yeah.
to do with Star Trek. I try to
Mhm.
go to and be
Mhm.
involved in somehow. So it was me. I was kind of excited when I was looking at some of your stuff. I'll have to go and I'm just going through all your stuff
Right.
here, but
Great.
this
Nice.
is your YouTube. Is there anything
Yeah.
on here that you would like to talk about before we go
Well,
on
I
to
mean, yeah, it's funny because even though it is mostly a Star Trek channel, the video that got the most views was that Fallout one,
yeah.
third one in.
Hmm.
That's got almost, I think, it was just over 250,000 views. And I think it's because it came out right when the Fallout TV show was coming out, so that was hitting. That was everybody was looking for more information about that. And here comes my video where we talk about. In Fallout 4, your character starts out in a house called the House of Tomorrow, and it's actually it's basically an old Lustron house that they
Hmm.
used as inspiration. And I go through the history of Lustron, where they came from and stuff, and then how it relates to Fallout, and that's it's a little bit of a history lesson, I guess, and so people wanted to people
Well, I
watched it.
haven't
So
got. Are you talking about the game Fallout?
Fallout 4, yeah, the game,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
because I just watched, I guess about 6 months ago, I finally finished the first season
Uh-huh.
of the series because I absolutely love Walton Goggins. I've met him
Mm.
multiple times in
Yeah.
person because I have, I do work in the
Mhm.
entertainment industry and I absolutely love him. His wife is really, really fun. They're
Yeah.
really nice people. And to get to see him up there with no nose and stuff is like, oh, this is really creepy. But it's a
Yeah.
really, really good show. I think they've done a really good job. Now, I haven't played the game, so I don't know if it's
Yeah.
accurate. I've heard, a lot of people gripe because I like a certain show or a movie because I didn't play the game. So,
Mhm.
it's hard sometimes to have conversations with people that are saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, they ruined the lore, they did this, that, and the other." But if I see it and I like it, I like it. I
Mhm.
can't help it. And most people
Yeah.
don't read the comic book or
Right.
do all these different things, and they'll go see a movie and
Mhm.
they'll love it, and then
Mhm.
maybe they'll pick up a comic book. But most
Mhm.
people that go to this stuff don't, because I have four
Yeah.
sisters. I'm huge. I have Morbius. I love Morbius. The
Uh-huh.
Midnight Suns is my favorite series in comic books.
Mhm.
I love Deadpool and Cable. I have other comic books and
Yeah.
Wolverine. And I have tons of Wolverine comics that are signed by the cartoonist and the writer. And I just
Mhm.
love all those. But my sisters aren't into it at all. So,
Right.
there's a lot of people that when I talk about certain things, they're like, they just roll their eyes.
Right.
They don't want to hear
Yeah.
about it. But for people like us that love
Mhm.
comic books, who love Star Trek and other things like that, it's nice to have other people that you can have
Mhm.
conversations with that
Yeah.
actually like the same things. So
Yeah.
that's one reason why when I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a few conversations with this guy because he's in Star Trek too. And I
Yeah.
really do love it. But
Yeah.
it's nice to get to talk to other people that are in the same I
Mhm.
guess realm as we are
Mhm.
with things that we like. Oh, hello, Bone, thank you for stopping in, I appreciate it.
Hey,
So
Bo.
I hope you enjoy the show. But I'm going to go on and take this down, and I'm going to bring up your other book, the one that we were going to talk about the most this evening, and I'll let you get started on that. And I also shared the link from the last from your YouTube channel, so that
Great. Thank
people
you.
can also go to your YouTube channel and check it out and see what's on there. But this is the reason why I wanted
Yes.
you on the channel, so they could help you with your
Mhm.
brand new comic book. So you can
Yeah.
go ahead and tell us about it. What do you think?
Alrighty. So, suffering from a decompression accident while serving as a Navy diver, Jake Yeager undergoes an experimental cure to restore his damaged body and now exists as a hybrid, combining the best aspects of both man and Bigfoot. Now he has to survive as a monster among men while satisfying his instinct to destroy evil wherever he finds it. The man within the monster was a freewheeling thrill seeker and heir to a 19th century lumber baron family, but now he's a stealthy behemoth living on the outskirts of society and walking the thin line between our world and an unseen world, a world of living folklore and super science. In our debut issue here, DEMI-FOOT number 1, we learn who he is and what malevolent forces brought him to his new altered state. We follow Jake as he gets his bearings and prepares for an all-out war on 3 fronts, fighting fellow monsters like himself, supervillains, and a shadowy organization dedicated to keeping his existence and the existence of all cryptids the stuff of frauds and hoaxes. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. Where we're at here. This is a classic monster hero archetype, not unlike characters like Swamp Thing and the Hulk and the Werewolf by Night and all those other great comics from yesteryear. And that's what he is. I've got 12 issues already plotted and scripted, and so this is but it all begins here, and we've got a number of lovely.
Is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Your artist is phenomenal. Did you, when you talked to them about what you wanted, did you just give them some ideas and then they just sent back to you something that they had done, and that's how it went back and forth? Or did you have a little bit more hands-on when it came to the actual cartoon?
So in comic book writing, there are generally 2 schools that writers fall into. There's the Marvel method, and then there's the standard or DC Comics method. So I tend to be more the DC Comics. I write a full-blown script. Usually a typical script has approximately 1 typed page equals 1 page of story on a comic book, but mine usually end up being 3 or 4 pages per every page because I put multimedia into my scripts. I put photo references to give an idea of what I'm talking about. For example, the artist's name is John Dillard, by the way. He's his credits include the Buckler and the Mighty Golden Patriot. For example, one of the things that I really wanted in this book, just because I want to give the reader something they have never seen before. Almost all the cars that you see in this comic book are AMC vehicles, American Motors Corporation, which was a car company, independent car company that out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, that went away in the 80s. So we have a Pacer there. He didn't know exactly what a Pacer is. I'm telling him, okay, so like all the cop cars are Matadors. The first car here is a Pacer. The hero will drive an AMX, and he's like, what are all these cars? Are you just making up these names? You're acting like I should know what these are. And I'm like, no, these are real cars, John. And I would incorporate the pictures of the cars into the script. But yeah, I get very pedantic with my scripts because I get meticulous. Okay, DEMI-FOOT doesn't just wear a pair of shorts; he wears a pair of UDT shorts, underwater demolition team, because the character was a diver in the Navy, and so and I tell him these are khaki shorts, and they have a built-in belt system and stuff, and he's just I have to send him all kinds of photo references, and there's other writers out there who would just tell you what generally happens on a comic book page and what the character is going to say and let the artist do everything else. And to me, it's like I want to make the artist work as little as possible so he can actually work on the quality of and the fidelity of the images rather than how he's going to show things. So I'll tell him, okay, this panel has this on it. Try to do it from an oblique angle from up here, and so it was. Dillard was working on these pages while he was simultaneously working on a different comic, and I had the super pedantic script, and the ones he was working on for this other comic were the other
Yeah.
thing. And he was like almost like looking at mine as doing my pages as almost a break, from the other one. But that's just one of my favorite images. This was the first image that John Dillard actually did of DEMI-FOOT, and he's ripping the engine out of an AMC Javelin.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so good. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's and the faces on those characters in the car are what really get me. There's something very Kirby about the guy face, and then there's also something very maybe Greg Horn about the woman's face. I don't know, but the faces are in the car I just love. And
it's
yeah.
like they have no idea what they're supposed to do. I mean,
Yeah.
they're scared. You could tell.
Yeah, and
Especially
it's like the woman is just howling, and then the guy is almost looking at the camera going, what am I supposed to be thinking here, kind of thing. So
I just love
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's like a snapshot in time, basically. That because what's really awesome about it is the fact that it's something you can go and look at multiple times over and over again, like I do with my comic books. And because when you're online and you see pictures that people post, and then you try to go back and find it, it's like, unless you specifically saved it in a bookmark or whatever, it's like lost. It's really hard to find. To have actual photos to look at on print, see, that's I just love that. I just hope that doesn't go away, because I think we're going to lose a lot for our kids, the younger generations, if they don't actually have something they can hold in their hand and turn the page and look at the pictures and read the story and feel the emotion that jumps out at you from actual pictures like this, instead of everything being on a tablet or a phone, like we were talking about before we went live. It's just I don't know. I love it. And to give you something to actually collect. That's one reason why I love the trading cards and things like that for kids. And I'm seeing more and more people that are doing these type of things, making these little cards, depending on, what packages you get to have. I just think it's really good because it's like a collectible, basically, to get you to want to collect something. So I think these are awesome. You've done a wonderful job.
And I think the comic book industry has also learned that digital comics are a bust. 15, 20 years ago, everybody was saying, oh, I love paper too, but we have to look into the future. And it's like, no, the digital comics did not catch on. And you have to get back to the whole idea of selling a physical object that has your stories on them. And the fact that they're made out of paper and are thus fragile increases their collectability, because if you don't take care of it, it's going to get all ratty and no one would buy it from you. So yeah, we've learned that lesson, and slowly I think we're coming out of the whole obsession with digital comics. Now I am offering a digital tier here, and that's mostly for people who don't want clutter in their lives, and also for people in, for example, Europe, who don't want to pay extra shipping and just want to read the story when it comes out. And they can read it
it's
on
very
their devices.
expensive. The thing is that why not have both? If somebody's willing to pay a little more to have a tangible object like this lunchbox I was looking at, it's just awesome. If somebody's willing to pay you for the extra things, why not have it to offer, if you can afford to put it in your in your program or whatever, because I'm willing to do that. I'm one of the people that would save my money. If I see something I really want, I will save my money so I can get it, because I want to. I know I'm an adult, but I go through my office and I play with my stuff. I have tons and tons of stuff like this, and I actually hold it, look at it, and it makes me happy just to see it, to know that I have it. And I have
Mhm.
tons of things like that. But I know there's many other people like that, like me.
Mhm.
And then there's other things like I have my 6 issue uh, set of my favorite, the Midnight Suns comic book series, and I have
Mhm.
6 that have never been opened. They're still in the wrapper,
Mhm.
and no one's allowed to open them. Right? You
Right.
have that.
Right.
It's my
Mhm.
collectible part, but then I have the one where I take the center poster out. You know, and I've
Mhm.
read them and I've played with them, hung them up, framed them, whatever, taken them with me to be autographed, all of them.
Mhm.
But that's just what collectors like to do. So,
Yeah.
are you ever planning on with any of your books? Do you do shows? Do you go to cons and things like that to also let your readers come to you and get autographs and pictures or whatever else?
Well,
If-
I do plan on it, if and when when DEMI-FOOT funds completely, and we actually have issues to obviously send out to the backers first. Any left over, obviously, I'd love to go to a con, and I know that there's an indie con in the works right now with some big names that have already said they'll go. Guys like Billy Tucci and Ethan Van Sciver and those guys. So I mean, I would love to go to that, but got to have the comic first. So I mean, that's where
well,
we're
I
at
mean,
here.
with
Like,
the
and this is
other
stage
the
one.
other stuff that you've already done, have you ever done it with those?
No,
Those
no, I haven't. I did go to a couple of conventions when Hyperactives was on sale on the newsstands, and but after a while, I mean, this is kind of a bit of a story. I was breaking into the industry in 2005, and that's when all of a sudden the sad, pitiable leftism had firmly gotten a grasp of that industry to the point where if you didn't participate in the 2 minutes hate, okay, let me rewind a little bit. So you're at a convention and you get invited with some of the other creators in Artist Alley and whatever to go out for dinner, and you're sitting there and all they want to do is rant about the latest left wing talking point, and I'm just sitting there quietly waiting for that conversation to end so we can get back to talking about comics and the storytelling and that kind of stuff. And they could tell because I wasn't joining in the 2 minutes hate. The 2 minutes hate is a reference to George Orwell's 1984 novel, where
Mhm.
all you were employees in the government and in corporations were allowed to take a break to watch a media presentation that was designed to make them angry, and they were allowed to shout at the TV and get their frustrations out before they go back to work. And so because I didn't participate in the 2 minutes hate, they automatically knew that I wasn't one of them,
Mhm.
and that if a lefty editor wants to work with lefty people and doesn't want to work with the other kind, then you won't get any work. And I could feel the doors closing already back then. Now we know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the comic book industry, the big two, this came to a head where they just started hiring not just lefties, but people who had no inherent love or reverence for the characters that they were being assigned. So that's where
Mhm.
we come. That's where we get superheroes that are all of a sudden like Superman being violated in a prison and things like that. It's like, no, you don't do that to that character. That's a cash cow. You have to keep him in a certain state, and then once you're done telling the stories you can tell with that character, you move on to a different character. You don't just start telling stories like that in Superman, and there were other things going on too with other characters, and it got to the point where not just people who are center right were not reading comics anymore, but also lefties themselves weren't. And the reason why was because they already get that stuff in every other media. Comics are supposed to be fun, and they're supposed to be an escape from reality, not an escape to a reality that's already being pitched to us in every media channel that we have. Television shows, sitcoms. Even the Weather Channel got political. It became the climate change channel is what it became. And so I'm off on a tangent here, but part of what I'm trying to do, along with a number of other people who are in the crowdfunding community, is to try to steer the ship back from the outside. And there's no politics in DEMI-FOOT, but there will be people out there who say because it's apolitical, that makes it right wing.
See, that's sad, isn't it?
It is sad.
When I was a young girl, my dad showed me his Foot Locker and was showing me things in it because I had found a picture or something, and I'd ask him who that was, and he was telling me it was his great grandfather. So he showed me his Foot Locker, and it had bunches of comics in it. It was like Archie's, and just all these ones that I never heard of them. And my dad was showing it to me, and he started going through it. And he's the one that introduced me to Star Trek. So we'd watch Star Trek reruns together, and he introduced me to comic books. And through that, I was like, I would always ask him, can I read one of your comics? And he would let me. And as long as he knew I would take care of it. And I didn't run around with it or anything. I'd put it back. I didn't eat while I had it. Things like that. I learned respect for my father's collectibles, basically. And I started collecting coins and doing a lot of things because I was like a tomboy with my father. But that's how I was introduced to comic books. And then after that, when he would go to certain places, he would say, hey, do you want to go? They have comics there. So I would go and I'd go through all the comic books. And I started going to, secondhand stores, things like that, trying to get whatever I could. And when we lived in the Philippines, I couldn't find any that were in English. They were all, with Tagalog. So I could read them. So I would buy them anyways, though, because I really wanted the cartoon was cool. I mean, it was neat looking. And I'd have our assistant, the woman that came and helped my mom clean house and things like that, she would read it to me. So and I learned a little bit of Tagalog through the 2 years that we were there. But it's you just don't know what impact it will have on a young person on wanting to collect and how to respect other people's property. You see so many kids today, they just go take something off the shelf and they eat it or whatever, they throw it on the ground. They just don't seem to care about other people's property. It's me. And just because you don't agree with the raising your kids to have manners and to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, like I was told to, opening a door for someone, whether it's a man or a woman, it shouldn't matter if their hands are full. I've done that many times and I still do it. But I want to get back to that, I hope, to where we have respect for other people, not because they're older or younger or they're a man or a woman or their skin tone is different, just because we care about other people and we'd hope that they do it for me. So why wouldn't I want to do it for someone else? That type of thing, just to do it. And hopefully that type of stuff, like you were saying, is that we start having just respect for others without having to be asked to, you know what I mean? To do those things. And I think things like this are important to get somebody interested in a story like that. But I want to see the good guy win, because every day when you turn on the TV or you get on X or Facebook, whatever, you see so many bad things. The news constantly talks about bad people dying, people being shot, people getting killed in a car accident, all these sad, horrible stories. And I can go get one of my comic books and read it, and guess what? The hero wins. The good guy wins, or the good girl wins. The people have someone to cheer for. Like I said, with the military, being raised on a military base and saying the Pledge of Allegiance and things like that. I don't know. I just would love to see our country get back to that, to where parents want to teach their children to have respect for others and to respect other people's property. And you don't see
Yeah.
that when you watch TV anymore right now.
No.
It's really sad. And I hope we can get back to that. But go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll
And
go
you,
off on a tangent. You go ahead.
no, it's okay. It's okay. I had a tangent too, but I mean, you're right about that. I mean, one of the things I remember vividly when I was, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old was trading comics with another kid in town who bought them, and he bought them at the same place I did. But and even though comics were a lot cheaper back then, when I started reading them, they were 55 cents, and you could maybe afford one or two a month. Maybe that'd be it, and it would be, if you before you were old enough to have a job, shoveling sidewalks or mowing lawns, you had to beg, borrow, steal, whatever you could do, mostly beg your parents for a couple of quarters so you can get the latest issue of the Hulk or something. But I remember, they were also a currency between two kids, so okay, I'll trade you this issue of Rom the Space Knight for your copy of Green Lantern over here. And yes, that's a commodity, and it's also a collectible. So everybody would take, they knew that if it was dog-eared or ripped or anything, that you wouldn't be able to trade it for another one you wanted to read with somebody else. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of practicality to that. And the whole experience of reading a comic is not just a visual reading experience. It is that tactile experience of turning the page and feeling the quality or lack of quality in the printed newsprint that they used to use. They don't use newsprint anymore, but when comics started being printed on better paper, like Baxter paper and Mando paper, that was a turning point for us. But it also meant that they cost about 25 to 35 cents more when they were printed on that kind of paper, but it was better paper,
Yeah.
But that tactile experience, that was another thing that everybody thought that people would just move from paper to digital and it would be even more cost effective. Hey, we don't have to print the books anymore. We can just send out digital files. And no one wants to read that. It's you're moving panel to panel instead of looking at a page, and then your eyes are moving from panel to panel on the page. Mm-hmm. It's a totally different experience, and I'm glad to see that finally people are acknowledging that the digital comics idea, the industry was never going to move over to that, and it's actually quite a small part of the industry now. So yeah, it also makes them easier to be bootlegged, and pirated and things like that. So I mean, at least with print copies, somebody has to buy the comic before they can scan it on their scanner and throw the pages online. At least you got that one sale as opposed to digital comics. But it's we do have a digital tier again for those who like that kind of thing. This is actually the second attempt I've had at funding DEMI-FOOT. The first time was on Indiegogo, which is a little bit bigger platform, and but they only give you 60 days to fund, and I was greener than you when it came to crowdfunding, and so I wasn't able to raise enough money for it in the 2 months. But this is a little bit different. This is Fund My Comic. This will go on as long as need be to fund it,
I think that's a great idea. The fact that anyone, whether you're using a platform like this, like what you were talking about, Indiegogo. I've seen a lot of people use different platforms, to help raise money for somebody to have surgery, someone's house burnt down, and that type of thing. And to put a time limit on it, like you have to have it done in 30 days or something like that, it's really hard because a lot of these people are already in the middle of a chaos of some sort, and now they're trying to run this. Like I was speaking earlier, when Clobby passed away, a few people got together and were trying to do fundraising to help with his service, things like that. That's a little different because you only have a short amount of time, but you have multiple people all working at it. But a lot of these things, like this project, you might have you and the person who's helping you draw it, or one other person, all working, trying to do it. But if you have a job on top of that, And that type of thing, it makes it even harder to put in the time and effort you need to make your site look as good as this, to show the different things that you offer for each of the amounts of money that you donate towards it. Because basically, that's what my mother always said. If you give someone money, whether you're buying a ticket for a raffle, for a gun or whatever it is, don't expect anything. Only give money that you can't, you can afford to give away. It's just like going to the casino. You might win, you might not, that type of thing. But this is different because when you give your certain amount of money, you're going to get at least that. See what I mean? So it's a lot different than a funding something else where you don't have a clue whether you're going to end up with anything or not. But this, I think, is really, really awesome the way you have it set up, because it does show you step by step what you're trying to accomplish, how much how many articles, or how many comic books you've got already ready to go, when how many issues you have ready to go, and what you're offering for each of the different steps of the tier that you're trying to do to get to it. So what is your goal? You talk about your goal and when you'll start mailing them out and everything when you reach a certain point.
The goal is $8,000, and that is going to cover the page rate for the artist to finish the book, along with the publishing costs for getting those comics out there, along with shipping and all that stuff, and also the production of things like lunch boxes and T-shirts. So when we get to 8,000, that's when Dillard will be be finishing up the book, and then the campaign will continue beyond the goal, obviously, because then at that point Indiegogo becomes a kind of online store where you're literally at that point, then you're still backing it, but it is kind of like you're buying it. It's and again, I do have a digital tier, but for the cost of a Whopper combo at Burger King, you can get the actual comic, and it's and then you got a physical, tangible thing in your hand that you can read and reread, and you can learn about this latest monster hero, I think that people who read this are going to care about what happens to this character. He seems to be dealt a pretty lousy hand. But then, he's not one of those guys who, the typical scene when it comes to a monster hero, especially in their origin, is them looking at their hands going, what have I become? What am I going to do now? I've lost everything. I've lost my fiance. I've lost all, and there is a tiny bit of that. But also with this guy, because he had a decompression accident when he was a diver in the Navy, which that's basically the bends. Now, in his case, what happens is nitrogen bubbles formed inside of his joints and popped all of his major joints. So anybody who's ever had joint pain can attest to how painful that is. And so he gets medically discharged from the Navy, and he has to walk with a cane, and he has to walk very slowly because anytime he moves, he uses his joints, he's in pain. And so in a state like that, he's eventually going to lose his diver bod. He's built like Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, and but one thing leads to another, and suddenly he's got a very different body, and he can move without pain, and so that's like he's like, well, gee, I look like a freak, but then I can move at least, so there's a balance there that he maintains almost immediately. And I think there's going to be people who I think read this character, and they're going to think to themselves, yeah, this is how a man deals with a problem. This is how you deal with a permanent change in your life. So there's a lot of that kind of I guess that if I had to say that was a theme in the comic, that would be one of them. About beyond all the conspiracy theory stuff and the great big huge dudes punching each other through brick walls and things like that you're used to with a comic. There is that, of course, the big main event fights and stuff like that. But there's also the little moments of this that I think will have people coming back for more. And
how long did it take for you once you came up with the idea for DEMI-FOOT to find your cartoonist? Because did you have to search around and explain your story to them to get them interested in the story to be able to want to draw for you, or was it easy to find him to want to draw for you?
Luckily, I knew John before I came up with DEMI-FOOT. I was hanging out with him in various backstage rooms, pardon me, and discussing comics and things like that. He had actually hired me to script a story that he was going to do, and then that kind of got moved to the back burner. It was a Buckler story, or at least a tangential Buckler story. I won't go into it, meanwhile, I'm writing this thing, and originally the thing that became DEMI-FOOT was actually going to be a novella about a rogue male Sasquatch, a full-blown Sasquatch that wanders into a city's park and doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And then, of course, anytime there's a crime, a mugging or anything in that park, here comes this thing out of nowhere that roughs around the perpetrators and scares the crap out of the would-be victims and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, and I started writing it, and I had been doing research on cryptids and Bigfoot in particular for about 6 years. I was listening to interviews with people who had eyewitness accounts and things, and listening to analysis of that. And I'm not a cryptozoologist, but I was living on the website Sasquatch Chronicles and other ones, the Monster 911 Oklahoma Cryptid Encounters, others, those guys and things. And I knew so much about what Bigfoot probably was, and one of the things you gradually learn is that they have no inner monologue. They're not like us. They are very deliberate creatures, right? They act in the moment, and they don't. It's weird. You're almost dealing with an animal, right? Like you can stare at a wolf, and a wolf won't move until you give it certain cues, right? And then all of a sudden it'll move. And so that's what a Sasquatch is like. So trying to write an introspective story where the main character is a Sasquatch was really hard to do. I'm like these things don't think like you and me. I want to write him like a human. I want to write him like a human being. And one of the other thoughts that kept being repeated in my head was, if a human being could do all the things that a Sasquatch would do, they'd be an effective superhero. They'd be right up there with Spider-Man and a few others. And then it suddenly clicked. And I remembered an old movie with Michael Landon called "I Was a Teenage Werewolf."
Yeah.
Which was a weird movie because he's not actually a werewolf in the movie. He's a guy who's given a serum and then is hypnotized, and that's what turns him into a wolf. There's no supernatural aspect at all to the character. And I thought, I was a teenage Bigfoot, and I found out that I was a teenage anything is already trademarked. So you can't do that. So I started, and then originally the story was going to be just urban Sasquatch, and then I found out that there was this ultra low budget direct to video movie called Suburban Sasquatch, which was a home movie made by some college kids where there was like a guy running around in the suburbs wearing a in fact he was supposed to be a Sasquatch, but he was wearing a gorilla suit. It was a really poorly made film, and I'm like, okay, we're not going to call it that. Yeah, Wes Germer, Sasquatch Chronicles. He's the guy I was referring to earlier. And so I decided I needed a name, and eventually I settled on DEMI-FOOT. Part of it came from the thing that got me into comic books was the Incredible Hulk TV show with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno back in the day. I was about 4 years old when the pilot movie came out, and my dad made me watch it. It was the closest thing to a monster movie I'd ever seen. I was very young. It scared the crap out of me. But there was an episode. It was. I mean, it was basically an old school Universal Studios, because they used Wolfman effects for the transformations and things. So it was, and that's that was the time honored way of showing something like that in a TV show or a movie back then. So we didn't have CGI back then. We had Lou Ferrigno and shirts that were too small for him that got ripped, and and stuff. And contact lenses. That's what we had. Yeah. But No, there was an episode where it was a two-parter called Prometheus, where the main character, there's a meteorite called the Leo object that crashes near where Bill Bixby's character happens to be camping, and the radiation that this meteor is giving off makes it so when he turns into the Hulk, he can't change back all the way. He's stuck part way. And the makeup design for that midway transformation that he was stuck in was called the Demi-Hulk. And that's where it kind of came from. I'm like, a Demi-Hulk, like demigod, and then I thought, well, what am I going to say? Demi-Bigfoot? And then I just shortened it to Demi-Foot because a three-syllable name usually sticks with you. It's kind of like RoboCop, right? Demi-Foot.
Yeah.
It sticks with you. And if even if it's a ridiculous name like RoboCop or Demi-Foot, if everything else about it is cool, an audience will accept a ridiculous name, and suddenly the name won't be ridiculous anymore. That's how you do that stuff. So that's where that came from.
Well, I think you did a great job because the whole story about it being just a regular man that suffers a tragedy basically, and it causes him to change into something else. That is almost like all the stories that when we heard when we were little about about werewolves and vampires, things like that. So all of us grew up with those type of stories. So, but to have somebody that is just a regular guy, that this happens to, instead of someone who is like, a descendant, you know what I mean? That type of thing of a werewolf, you know what I mean? So I think it's great. I think it's a really good concept, and hopefully it's going to take off and do really well because it sounds very interesting. And do you put on your website, this website right here, that you're a veteran?
I don't. I do put it on my X profile, which is linked on Fund My Comic, and I do put that as one of my credentials because it's funny because I got my college diploma sitting somewhere. I don't have it up on the wall or anything. It's great that I got that, but the thing that I got that gives me the most pleasure in looking at once in a while is my qualification in submarines. Being a full-fledged submariner. That's in a framed thing, on my dresser that I, because that actually took more work than the degree did, actually, in my opinion. But
well, it's just to me that it's I see a lot of people, especially in the industry, in entertainment industry, that sometimes they're ashamed to tell people that they were, spent 4 years in the military or 8 years in the military, because they're afraid that if somebody knew that, they won't get hired. And that's really sad to think that, because honestly, if I was doing my own production of some sort, that's the kind of people I'd look for. I'd look for people who have went through something like that, because guess what? You can count on them. They're going to show up,
They're going to show up.
Little things like that, to me are important. When you go in for an interview, are you going to go in your bathrobe, just slippers, or are you going to take a shower, brush your hair, try to be more presentable, to give the person you're talking to about this job that you're wanting, from them, that you're a presentable person, a person you could put in charge of the cash register, or greeting your customers, or selling a certain item, or being on a computer with details that you don't really want to share with everyone. A trustworthy person. And I just, it's sad to me that there's so many people that feel like they can't be themselves, or even talk about things that isn't them, basically, simply because they're worried that they'll be shunned, or it'll hurt their business. It's really sad that we are there right now in the United States of America.
I know, and I remember coming back from the service and going back to school after doing 4 years in, and it was one of those things where nobody wanted. It's like nobody wanted to hear from the veterans in the class. It was really weird. And this is an observation that I made, and I pointed it out on X, but also to a friend of mine backstage, was that all 4 showrunners of the original Star Trek series were veterans. Gene Roddenberry, and Gene Kuhn, all of them. But when you get to TNG, only one executive producer had any military experience at all. He was just in Navy ROTC. And now, of course, when you get to the new stuff, I don't know if you've paid any attention to the new stuff that's been coming out of Secret Hideout productions of Star Trek.
Not really.
Yeah, well, you're not missing much, because there's no way anybody. I mean, they've been replacing the naval and nautical aspects of Starfleet and of their ships with civilian stuff, because that's all the writers know and that's all the writers want to research. It never occurs to writers recently to ever do any research on a topic. They want to write about their own experiences and their own feelings about things. Well, you can do that if you're Laura Ingalls Wilder and you had a really interesting childhood in life. You can do that. But if you're just an ordinary person who grew up in the suburbs, you're not going to have as much that people are going to want to read. And so for example, I use this all the time. Normally when a Star Trek ship is about to collide with something, they go, all hands brace for impact, But on the new shows, they say brace, brace, brace. Well, that's what a civilian flight attendant tells people in a commercial flight to do if they're ever going to crash land. Yeah. So they're clearly not, it's like that whole idea of this being a ship in space is lost at this point. But getting back to DEMI-FOOT though, I think if people ask me, what the theme is, if you look at, for example, just the Incredible Hulk TV show, right? The Incredible Hulk TV show was about a man who was dealing with a situation that was out of his control. That was, if you boil it all away, all the science fiction aspects, that's what it was about. And this is a story about a guy who's dealing with a permanent change in his life, which anybody can relate to. I don't care, whether it's puberty, whether it's a permanent change where you escape adolescence and into adulthood. For some people, getting married is a permanent change. Or at least
having a kid.
Having a child, yes, exactly. Having a grandchild. I mean, there's all kinds of permanent changes that happen to us in our lives, and this is one of them. And so when people ask me, well, what's it about? I tell them that, and I tell them it's also about great big fights with big monster dudes punching each other through cement rebar enforced, walls and things like that, and all that good stuff that people like in comics. So yeah, it's. But that's why somebody would want to read DEMI-FOOT. I kind of liken him to the Rocky Balboa of monster heroes, because Rocky, this guy doesn't win every encounter, but you want him to, and that gets people right in their DNA, I think.
Yeah, because we don't always all win,
Right.
The thing is, that's closer to reality. And the struggles of, well, how am I going to do it better next time? Right. I'm in that situation. What can I do to improve myself so that I will be successful my next endeavor? That type of thing. Yeah. And that's reality. And I wish more people looked at it that way. It seems like, I hate to say this again, but when you grow up and every kid is given an award, whether they've done anything to earn it or not, just because they don't want any kid left out, how does that teach your kid to want to be a winner, to be successful at something? To show what kid needs improvement in one area if you treat all the kids the same way, no matter how good they do. And that's sad, because your children aren't excelling. They're not finding out this one's good at drawing, or that one's good at singing, or that one's good at sculpting, or math, or reading, whatever it is. We're not teaching our children that you can't always win, that you lose sometimes. and that you should go up and shake hands with the winner and tell them what a
Mhm.
great job, because they worked just a little bit better than you
Mhm.
did. That's why
Yeah.
they won. And
Right.
my dad always
It's
told us girls that, you can't always be a
yeah.
winner, but you
Yeah.
want to be in the race, like
Mhm.
my dad would always tell us. So,
Yeah.
it's nice to
I,
see a character in a comic book that is closer to reality.
mhm.
That like Batman, almost he always wins. A Superman
Right.
always wins in the
Mhm.
comic book. That the kid would think that. So
Mhm.
to have someone be able to read a story about someone who gives it their all, but they don't always win, is
Mhm.
closer to what happens to you in real life. So I think
Mhm.
it's really good perspective for your
Yeah,
story.
yeah. I mentioned Rocky earlier. He did. It's debatable, I guess, whether he actually won in the first movie. He won. He lost the match, but he actually did what he set out to do.
Mhm.
If you
The
remember,
one in life.
yeah, he looked at Apollo Creed and go, "There's no way I can beat this guy, but maybe I can go the distance. Maybe I can last all, 15 rounds with him and go to the end. No one's ever done that. If I can just do that, then I'll have a satisfying match, even if I don't win." And that's exactly what happens, and that's why you cheer
Uh-huh.
for him at the end. And Jake Yeager, the Demi-Foot, is going to have to discover his new role in the world that he occupies now. And this is also something that every guy, when they gets out of the service, has to figure out too. I had to figure it out too, and I got, okay, I'm no longer a sonarman on a submarine. Now I'm back in my hometown. How am I going to be defined now? What is my role going forward? How, what am I going to keep from the old military life, and what am I going to throw away from that life? And so this is, and if anything, it's sort of an exaggeration of that problem that all servicemen have. So there's that in there too, and we have a lot of fun making this comic. John Dillard really wants to do this comic. And I want him to do the comic, but I need everybody's help at this point. I'm just asking for some help here. Like I said, for a cost of a Whopper combo at Burger King, you can back the comic, contribute, and when it funds, you'll get an issue of that comic. So
Well, thank you so much. I hope that my little channel helps you a little, give you a little boost on getting some people to want to check it out, and even some of your other endeavors that you did before you decided to do this one. Maybe it'll give it a new kick,
oh,
and
thank you.
help it maybe start revving it back up again. You never know. But
Never
I
know.
really appreciate you coming on my show
I
and hanging
appreciate
out
you
with
letting me on the show, Janet. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
You're
You're
very
very
welcome.
gracious.
And so everybody, if you're in the chat or you're getting to watch this for the first time, just go check out the links and see for yourself. Take your time, bookmark them, go through, read, and find out as much as you want, and see if you can help them out. We'd really appreciate it. But thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us tonight. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we leave?
I think we covered it pretty well, Janet. But once again, thank you for coming down from Venus and
You're very welcome.
blessing us
Well, I'm already
with
here
your
on Earth, but it's just nice to be able to be myself once in a while and hang out,
yes,
with my true
yes, with your
form.
in your august presence. We very much
Well,
enjoy it. Thank you.
thank you very much. It was fun, and I hope all of you that hung out with us this evening have a wonderful night, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye bye.